Louhivuori and I am the Pedagogical Director for CC Finland. And today we have over 100 registrations for this webinar, which tells something about the interest towards this topic. And I am super excited to learn more about the SEL skills today with you guys. And yes, we have people from so many different countries, and I think this hour will be a super nice opportunity also for us to share best practices and learn more about how these skills are taught, or how, like, what we know in different parts of the world on SEL. But yes, so my background is in teaching, so I have been a teacher in Finland for many years, and SEL skills play a really important role in Finnish schools and in Finnish early childhood education. And I know from my own experience how important it is to teach children and students these skills, like friendship skills, or how to express their feelings and thoughts, and to teach them to get understood, and how it is also so important for the students. And I believe that children learn the best when they feel safe and when they are feeling good. And one way for us to make them feel safe and good in schools is to make sure that they have friends and they have these skills to make friends, and also to create an atmosphere in the classroom that is positive and safe. And one thing that I would like to share from Finnish schools is that how we teach these skills and how we create this safe environment is that when every academic year starts, we give dedicated time to create the positive atmosphere in the classroom, and we put the academic things aside, and we just focus on the group and how the students can get to know each other. We play games and we just spend time together, and that's a crucial time for us educators and also for the students to learn how to be together, and also how to start developing their social identity, and how we can also support their well-being in being in these classrooms and in groups. And in this all, the teacher and the educator has an enormous role, and that's why it's so important that we discuss these things together, and how we can also share these best practices together. I also would like to start by showing you a small short video from Finland, and it tells more about how SEL skills are taught in ECE in Finland. So just a moment, I will share my screen and I will then continue with the video. Just a moment.
No, tunnetaidot on tosi tärkeitä ja tärkeä osa varhaiskasvatusta ja heti pienestä pitäen sen takia justiinsa, koska ne luo sen kaiken perustan ja pohjan niiden omien ihmissuhteiden kehittämiseen ja siihen omaan tunteiden hallintaan. Keskeistä tunnetaitokasvatuksessa on, että kun se lapsi oppii sanottamaan niitä tunteita ja me autetaan niissä tunteiden sanottamisessa, silloin lapsi tulee ymmärretyksi. Ja silloin ei ole tarvetta potkimiselle tai huutamiselle, kun on tullut ymmärretyksi. Tunnekasvatusta opetetaan paljon mallintamalla. Eli paljon on kiinni siitä, mitä me aikuiset tehdään ja miten me ollaan. Me puhutaan toisille aikuisille nätisti, pyydetään toiselta aikuiselta anteeksi, jos toinen pahoittaa mielen. Omalla toiminnallaan arvostetaan toisia aikuisia, niin lapsi ottaa siitä ihan älyttömästi mallia siihen, miten hän kohtelee muita kavereita.
Varhaiskasvatuksessa opitaan todella hyviä taitoja, mitä tarvitaan myös koulun maailmaan ja myös myöhemmin työelämään. Että se on tosi tärkeä lapsille, että he ovat päiväkodissa ja saavat kavereita ja voivat tutustua toisiin ja oppia paljon sekä aikuiselta että kavereita.
Me panostetaan paljon leikkiin ja leikkitilanteisiin. Ja leikkihän on lapselle se kaikista ominaisin tapa niin kuin oppia. Varhaiskasvatuksen opettajan työ, niin se ottaa paljon, mutta se antaa enemmän. Oikeasti, jos me kaikki ymmärrettäisiin se merkitys, mikä lapsen ensimmäisillä vuosilla on, ja pystyttäisiin tukemaan sitä itsensä kasvamista, niin se olisi jotenkin vaan niin ihanaa ja tärkeää.
So yes, as we heard in the video, the early childhood educators, they really understand the importance of the first years of the child. And I think one takeaway from this video is also that note to ourselves is how we are modeling as adults our behavior, our feelings, our social emotional skills to the children, to our students every day. So we all have been there, that we have not been the most diplomatic people towards our family members or our colleagues. So it's a really good reminder also for us to remember every day with our own behavior and our own skills, we also model these attitudes and skills to the children. But yes, I would like to continue with our webinar, and I ask my dear colleague Simran to share the stage with me. Simran.
Thank you so much, Nelly, and always a pleasure sharing this podium with you. A very warm welcome to all of you. It has been such a heartening journey for last 1 month from the time when we announced that we are doing this social emotional learning webinar, and the registrations are pouring in, the comments are pouring in. That itself shows that there is this tons and tons of educators, parents who believe that yes, academics is very, very important for life and success and the growth. But SEL, social emotional learning, empathy, emotional intelligence is something that no AI can take away from us. So on that note, I thank my colleague Nelly for starting the webinar on such a good note. A warm welcome to all of our participants who are watching us on YouTube and LinkedIn Live and who are here with us on this forum. We welcome you. We really appreciate that you took the time to register and you're with us. Nowadays, time is more valuable than money, and you're spending this 1.5 hour with us, and we want to make it more meaningful. We are seeing there are educators, parents joining from another 10 countries. So wherever you're joining from, either it is good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. And warm greetings. My name is Simran, as Nelly introduced, and I am joining you live from very beautiful, misty Bangalore, India. And I want to start my dialogue, Nelly, with few questions. And this is for parents, this is for educators, this is for principals, the school owners, the visionaries, is that what could we do better for the child to love the learning journey? Could we kind of improve the classroom environment? Could we do some motivation so that they enjoy the learning process? What happens when a child who comes to the school is not doing emotionally okay? No matter how lovely our lesson plans are, how great we have done teacher development, and we have all our academics in place, we have fancy smart boards and all the things. But if the child is not having a correct start in the morning, how he or she can grasp all that knowledge? Second is, if the child is not enthusiastic, the teacher is not enthusiastic. We talk so much about vibes these days. In those vibes, can they really learn? These are my starting questions. And what if we could today understand that the behavior, the environment actually impacts child's learning. One of the areas of my research has been connecting dots of SEL from early years to the industry leaders. And the more I go in depth, the more I learn is what we do in early years goes to shape up their leadership skills. Now, when I talk about early years, the great influence, like Nelly showed us in their video, is about how we cultivate the social emotional learning. In a nutshell, and today we are going to learn so much about the components of social emotional learning, but what are those? Self-management, self-regulation, responsible decision-making, social behavior, so on and so forth. So very quickly, I want to just start on the note. I'll present just few slides just for us to remember why social emotional learning is important and how it impacts how the students learn. And remember, when I'm talking about this at the backdrop, please remember that teachers' social emotional learning and parents' social emotional learning, their emotional intelligence is a great contributor to the child who's getting into the classroom or getting into this whole academic environment. So allow me a moment to share my screen. I hope that's visible. I will do my best to make this full screen. Yeah. So let's talk about why is SCL important in education. One of the things that I like to have a dialogue with very senior educators is, now that AI is here, there is no information that AI cannot provide us. Everything children are going to learn through an AI-enabled school. We at CCE Finland also provide AI-enabled school solutions. But let's talk about human-to-human connection, which a teacher does with the student, which a parent does with the child. And that's how they develop their social skills, their self-management skills, and most important is recognizing their own emotions to proceed further in life. So what does SEL do? You won't believe, but there is tons and tons of research which proves that a conducive social emotional learning environment of a school, of a classroom, can have a great impact on child's academic performance. In fact, we at CCE did a 2 years research where we had first 20 minutes dedicated to student and teacher time, and we saw there was a great impact, at least 30% of difference in students' engagement, in students' attendance. They were more joyful to come to school because they had that morning engagement time with their teacher. They were dancing, they were doing mindfulness exercises, and they were planning the day along with the teacher. A great impact because of the social emotional learning integration in the curriculum is they enhance their social behavior. Isn't that what they want? We talk so much about they being global citizens. They are more emotional resilience. Now here, we also want that our children should identify and accept that, are they happy, not happy, are they sad, do they need some kind of a help, do they want to talk, do they need some time alone, and this goes for the teachers also. And why we make sure that SEL is a part of what they do during the day, please understand that having this as a part of the curriculum, we are nurturing informed, active, self-managed, empathetic global citizens who are appreciating the inclusive environments, inclusive atmospheres, and who are respectful to diverse cultures, diverse needs. And that is what they need when they are stepping out of the school or a home environment. And last but not the least, yes, it does. These are facts. It does boost academic success. It is very important to nurture their emotional well-being, and this is what is needed to actually create a global citizen. A person could have all the academics but would not know how to communicate, how to behave, how to show respect. That would not lead them to much of a success. Please remember that teachers' SCL is directly and absolutely correlatedly affecting a student's performance in the classroom, and same goes for parent. I wanted to talk a lot more about this, but I want to be respectful of the time, and I know all our brilliant speakers are waiting for their turn patiently. And I would be more than happy to connect with you and talk more about this. And maybe we could have one more webinar where we only talk about teachers and parents. But this today is all about what we want to do with our students. So on this note, I will move to our first speaker, Miss Anupa. Miss Anupa will introduce herself, and then she will talk about her views of why SCL is important to her as an educator. Miss Anupa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Simran. And nice to know that you're in Bangalore as well. So good evening, good afternoon, good morning to everyone, whatever time zone you're in. I'm trying to share my screen as I speak. We have to be very mindful of time. So while I start, one request is if you can read what's on the few things that are on the slide so that I don't have to read them out and waste time, so that we can really look at the important things. So my name is Anupa Nyanakan, and I am the Director of Schools at an NGO that is based in Bangalore. It's called the ACTS Group of Institutions, and ACTS does work in the areas of agriculture, community development, education, guitar making, and many other things. So I handle the education part of it, and we have 4 schools across India, and these are all affordable private schools. And today, as you can see on my screen, I'm going to be talking about how children succeed. And I'm calling it the power of social and emotional learning, because I truly believe that there is power in this. So you must be wondering why I have named my presentation, How Children Succeed. So I have named my presentation after a wonderful book that I read by Paul Tough that talks about why some children succeed while others fail. The story we usually tell about childhood and success is the one about intelligence and academic achievement. Paul Tough argues that the qualities that matter most have more to do with character, skills like perseverance, curiosity, conscientiousness, optimism, and self-control. In other words, also social and emotional skills. This is a boy in one of the schools that I work with. He is one of the many here that led me on my quest to find out more about social and emotional learning and the importance of this in education. So this little boy comes from a very difficult home. His father is alcoholic. He beats up the mother and the children. The mother and children tried committing suicide together. The grandfather intervened, and we, the school, stepped in, and we have been trying to help him. And many children from this particular school come from similar backgrounds of single mothers, alcoholic fathers, bad nutrition, no one to care and love them. And here is another story about another child many years ago, a very happy child. And you can see that she's on her way to school. And for those of you who grew up in India, this will be a very, very familiar sight to you. This little girl came from a very happy and safe home, loving parents. She was only encouraged and motivated, and she could share her thoughts and feelings with her family very, very openly. While she had a very happy childhood at home, she absolutely hated school. She was more interested in music and sports, and so which led to her not doing very well in studies. And in those days, the teachers only appreciated those who were good in studies. And so they treated her badly, or they ignored her, which led her to being bored, averse to learning, and then finally leaving school believing that she was no good and she was not intelligent at all. So I've told the story. I've started my presentation with 2 children from very, very different time zones, very different backgrounds, but yet they are connected. There are similarities. Can you point them out? If you can type it out in the chat box, but I will move on. Both these kids feel or felt threatened. And as the quote on the screen says, a child can't think logically when they are anxious, and they definitely can't learn. And helping them calm has to be the priority. So what does SEL mean to me as an educator? The quote that I have put on the slide sums it all for me. When students feel safe and supported, they are truly ready and able to learn. So while doing my research on SEL, which started a few years ago, I came across the happiness curriculum, and I'm sure you have all come across this as well. It's an educational program for children studying in nursery to grade 8 in schools run by the government of Delhi since July 2018. The objective is to improve the mental well-being of pupils, and it teaches mindfulness, social emotional skills, critical learning, problem solving, and relationship building. Its purpose is to build emotional awareness, to support decision making with emotional awareness, to equip pupils with the necessary skills and an environment to become purpose driven and explore a nuanced idea of happiness. On the screen, you can see the 3 stratas of happiness, which I'm not going to go into. And I have followed this, and I have heard that it has been a very successful program, proving that happiness, emotional wellness, social and emotional well-being, whatever you want to call it today, is crucial for our students growing up in today's world. We all strive to create vibrant learning environments, but have we considered the role happiness plays in this equation? Let's shift our focus from simply producing happy faces to cultivating a genuine sense of well-being that fosters the very skills we aim to nurture: creativity, innovation, and critical thinking. The research that we just looked at highlights a fascinating connection between happiness and creative output. When our students feel happy and safe, their brains become more receptive to new ideas and exploration. And when they are stressed and anxious, it produces the opposite. This is the power of happiness. This is the power of social and emotional learning. Imagine a classroom brimming with joy. Students are actively engaged, their faces alight with curiosity as they tackle problems and brainstorm solutions. This, my friends, is the power of happiness in action. Happiness acts as a catalyst, sparking a chain reaction that leads to everything that you can see here on the screen. But how can we cultivate this well-being of happiness in our classrooms? So many things here, which we all know, like Simran pointed out, we have enough information out there. So I'm really not going to go into it. I'm just going to you can quickly glance. And coming to the impact of teacher mood, I like to call it teacher mood in the classroom. It is significant and far-reaching. It affects not only the learning environment, but also student performance, engagement, overall classroom dynamics. I'm really not going to go into the details because we all know it. All I can say that it is very crucial for teachers to be aware of their mood and its effects, practice self-care, and develop strategies for maintaining a positive classroom presence even during challenging times. I believe that in today's world, professional development in emotional intelligence and stress management should be made mandatory for our educators. So by prioritizing happiness in our classrooms, we are not just creating a feel-good atmosphere, we are nurturing the very foundation for creativity and innovation. Let's move beyond the performative smile and cultivate a genuine sense of well-being that allows our students to blossom into their most creative and fulfilled self. Let's move from this to happy children. You know how we as educators can approach this responsibility? By focusing on things like foundational knowledge, critical thinking skills, adaptability, communication, collaboration, all the big words out there. And by focusing on these areas, educators can help prepare students for a wide range of future scenarios, both predictable and unpredictable. The goal is to equip students with a versatile skill set and a mindset that allows them to adapt, learn, and thrive in various situations that might encounter in their personal and professional lives. It's important to note that preparing for anything doesn't mean predicting everything, but rather developing adaptable, resilient individuals who can navigate uncertainty and change. This approach acknowledges that the future is inherently unpredictable, and the best preparation is a combination of foundational knowledge, transferable skills, and the ability to continually learn and adapt. Before I end, I want to bring us back quickly to these two children that I highlighted in the beginning. This lovely little boy is being counseled. He's being encouraged in school. Parents are being counseled as well, and we constantly have his back. He is doing well, and we are trying to give him the skills that he needs to thrive in the difficult environment that he is growing up in. That little girl on the right, that's me. And I can confidently say I turned out great in spite of having a hard time in school. It took a long time for me to build my confidence and believe in myself, and I'm very often still insecure. Many times I am asked why I am in the field of education if I hated school so much. My answer is because I want to make school enjoyable for students like me. Thank you so much. I hope I did not go beyond my time.
Absolutely not, Anupa. And your final presentation slide brought tears to my eyes, but they were happy tears. What a wonderful presentation. I know it's Nelly's turn to take over, but I just wanted to take a moment to comment that this is a sign of true hope, that there is a lot of difference that social emotional learning can make in an individual's life. Thank you for sharing that, Anupa, and you were well within time. Nelly, over to you.
Thank you, Simran. And thank you, Anupa, for amazing introduction to the work that also you do in your daily life. I have one question. If we have here listening today educators who now get to know more about SEL, but they haven't had the possibility to integrate these SEL skills to their work or to their classroom yet. So could you give one first baby step, one tangible tip, how to, like, from where to start? What would be the first thing to do if you as an educator or teacher would like to start teaching SEL skills to your students?
I think, like I often tell the teachers that I work with, that it's so important to, not just teach the subject, but teach the children. So many times they're just teaching out of a subject, out of a textbook, and they're focusing on completing the portions. They're not really looking at or understanding or getting to know the students that they teach. And I think that's a good first step. It doesn't require, it requires a lot, but you don't need to study too much or read too much about it, but just take the time and the effort to get to know each child, get to know what helps them tick, how they learn, whether they're bored, whether they learn slow, whether they learn fast. I think that's a good way to start, I think.
Yes, thank you. That's a really good tip. I would start from there also. That sounds really good. Thank you, Anupa. And then we will continue to our next speaker. I will ask Joachim to introduce himself and continue from here.
Thank you so much, Nelly. I hope I am audible and visible as well. I have to give my thanks to Anupa as well. It was a great presentation, and one of the final things that you mentioned about your background as well. It's really courage and brave to share such a personal story, and encouraged me to also share the reason that you chose to be in the education sectors is much about your personal experience and perhaps even hardships in your own school years, and how that has affected your willingness and drive to want to offer something better for other learners. So thank you so much for sharing that. Just a moment, I'll share my screen as well. And here we go. I hope it is visible. So my topic for today is character strengths and positive feedback as a superpower. And a little bit about my background. the inspiration for social emotional learning and education, the spark was introduced in quite an interesting environment, as in my during my mandatory military service in the Finnish Defense Forces. As a recent high school graduate, I was such a everything was so new, but I think in that environment, I really realized how much I was curious about others' journeys, other development journeys, and how, as a group leader, I was also expected to see how we could gain the best outcome by focusing on everybody else's strengths. But eventually, and hope and gladly, my journey took off to another environment, to the Netherlands, to Mexico, and South Korea from there. Because even though I really enjoyed my role in the military, it was an environment that I did not accept. I didn't agree on the higher hierarchy level that it was introduced there, and some of the strategies that were to introduce. But I really liked what Nelly was saying in the past, previously in the video, that a lot has to do with in the social emotional learning has to do with modeling and learning from positive experiences. And so that we are connected by all of us here, the willingness to provide the absolute best for our learners. And how could we expect that from them if we didn't expect that from ourselves and if we didn't have those practices in place? So I'm going to focus that in just a moment. So why social emotional learning? We talked a little bit about this already, but I think it's a really, real superpower. And if I had one skill that I wanted to learn when I was in my early years, it would be social emotional learning. Because I really see that by having this self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, responsible decision making, relationship skills would have helped me in so many ways in my own journey, and the ability to give that and provide that to others as well. And since those years in the military, I've had the privilege of working with a lot of young people and educators, and in various topics such as social emotional learning, but also learning through impact project and physical and well-being projects. And something that is really personal for me is the way too often I tend to see learners who are such bright minds, but they have something that is holding them back. And often that is themselves. They don't have the self um, respect. They don't might have the self knowledge. But so it's sometimes very painful to see these examples, and those are the skills that I would love to learn and provide, and what educators around the world would love to give to their learners. And that's why social emotional learning is something that I really want to focus on, and think it's a superpower of for anybody to recognize, and I would love to recommend for anybody, regardless of their age and background. It is something that is very essential of managing our own skills and knowing ourselves and being able to recognize that from the others as well. So that's why I want to focus today on something that I've learned in one of my previous jobs, are these character strengths. And this is quite a vast list of character strengths that is not expected that somebody would have to know them by heart immediately. But these are something that you can work on for regardless of the ages. You can start by learning them for themselves from the others, and then going further and communicating them. This is a practice that it's been a kind of a very low threshold in any environment that I've been in my workplaces or with any learners, regardless of their age. And learning about these character strengths, it's really about the self-knowledge, being socially aware, being empathetic, and the ability to reflect and express those thoughts to the outside world as well. And when we become more aware of this, we are able to perhaps tie this in a regular practice of giving positive feedback as well. And this is something that we were able to do in my previous workplace, but not only with offices and management level, but all the way to the preschool level of learners. So we were using the same practices, and of course expecting a bit different things. But this was just an example of what we were able to do with different type of learners and how important it was for regardless of the age. So for me, this has become such a superpower of whenever I'm doubting anything and where I'm about to reflect anything, I go back to these character strengths. And when you tie positive feedback, for example, let's say we have a colleague who has been working really hard but didn't manage to get those sales results. Is that completely lost effort? Or if somebody else is looking at from the outside, is it actually bravery about picking up the phone and calling all these clients while having the fear of letting go? Is it about teamwork that they were able to support their team members? Or kindness or perspective or creativity of how to come up with that right result? So when we tie positive feedback on somebody's character strengths, they become also aware of them, and we become aware of them ourselves. And then it can become our superpower whenever we are doubting ourselves the next time. We are able to go back to those feedbacks or our character strengths and really, really use them in a later stage. What I really recommend is visiting VIA website. I have it in my resources as well, to really do this test as a starting point. And this is one of the great tools that you can do in terms of social emotional learning. But indeed, to start with learning and recognizing these character strengths, then able to communicate them in writing or speaking, applying them in a real life, and then identifying ourselves with those character strengths. So, for example, one of the things that I hold very dearly is appreciation of beauty, and it's my superpower whenever I'm feeling down or when life seems gray. It is something that I try to find these beautiful things out of the world, and this I would not been aware if some of my previous colleagues had not pointed this out. So this is a really has been a wonderful strategy for either workplaces or schools, and I can warmly recommend for any workplaces, and the ability to take on. And some of the resources here can warmly recommend via character strengths, and of course our social emotional learning course, which Nelly and my colleague Simran will be able to share a little bit more, and a little bit more as homework reading about positive feedback. Thank you so much from my part, and we'll give the stage to the next.
Thank you so much, Joachim. And I and Joachim have been working very closely for last half year or the early half year of this 2024. And we have been always talking about his passion and my joint passion about SCL. And Joachim, it is so wonderful to know what has inspired you and what thrives you in social emotional learning. And it was so good to know about positive feedback. And I have just one question before we move to the next speaker, is that let's talk about just feedback that comes from a teacher to a student, that comes from a parent to a child, and then, of course, from one teacher to another. Cannot always be positive. Can it be constructive? And would this kind of be a kind of a reminder for the teacher or for the parent to soften the feedback, or give constructive feedback, because we are also preparing the child for the real world?
I think it's a really excellent question, and I think it's really important to be able to separate behavior for somebody's identity or somebody's true self. So when we give feedback, I think it's really highly important to focus on behavior. And this time I experienced that you did this, and that caused this kind of behavior or this kind of result in your environment. So not to focusing on this is not who you are, but this is how are you behaving right now, so that they don't start identifying as a problem maker or lazy or anything like that, but always focusing on the behavior of that certain moment.
Absolutely. And this was one of the things that we were also discussing as a group of researchers in the recent doctorate residencies, that how easy it is for sometimes facilitators, parents to label the child. He's lazy or he's not going to do that. It would be so much better to say this behavior would not lead you to complete this assignment in particular time. Would you need some help to do this? And that itself can be such a constructive and a positive feedback, yet highlighting what needs to be corrected. So I think thank you for focusing on positive feedback. And I love the slide. I'm sure I'm speaking for many educators here. The slide that you depicted with the strength of characters, I loved it. And I'm sure there is a lot to read about this. But thank you so much, Joachim. And this soon from webinar is turning out to be a workshop, and I'm sure our educators, our parents are getting a lot out of it. Thanks once again, Joachim. And now I move on to our next speaker, Miss Mansi. Mansi, are you there and you can hear us? Yes.
Yes, I can. Am I audible? Just give me a thumbs up if I'm audible.
Yes.
All right.
And the floor is yours. All the best.
Thank you. Good evening, morning, good afternoon to people around the globe. And I'm so glad to be a part of this forum again. My name is Mansi Talwar. I'm a passionate knowledgepreneur, founder of Happy Me. I am dedicated to mindful corporate leadership as a mindful leadership coach, as well as a life coach for teens. I've devoted my career of over 2 decades to fostering growth, well-being, and happiness in both academic and personal settings. People ask me why from corporate you align yourself to the education fraternity. And the answer is simple. The foundation needs to be strong. So today, while I do that, let me just share my screen first and let's talk more about it. Okay, so if you could see my screen, please give me a thumbs up.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. All right, so before I move into what I'm going to talk about, I just want to do a little exercise with everybody up here. We get into the discussion. Before that, I would like for you all to join me in taking 3 deep breaths to get our bodies and brains ready for what we are going to learn. We're going to move from an emotional center of our brain to the learning part of the brain. So when I just click my fingers, just keep your hand on your chest and the other one on your stomach and deep breathe in 3 times so that your stomach is out when you breathe in and your chest is out when you breathe out. And while we do that, I invite you to just notice how you're feeling. Not trying to change anything, but just notice. Ready? Okay. So Joachim, Anupama, they spoke beautifully about kids and how their life gets affected by SEL and what made them get to SEL. And I'm going to share a story about this boy here. I want to introduce you to Rohan. He's 8 years old and he's a 3rd grader. And you know what? We all know this Rohan. Last night, his parents had a conflict. They were yelling and shouting, voices were being raised, and Rohan had a very hard time getting to sleep. He had even a harder time waking up because of all that commotion. So to get him up, his mom did it all over again. Rohan, get up, you're late. So Rohan got out of the bed and in a hurry, he got dressed, drank up his cup of milk, and ran out to the door to catch his bus. He's running and running, and finally he catches up to the bus just in time, panting, stressed. He takes a moment to get onto the bus, maybe a few seconds to catch his breath. And as he makes it on board, the bus driver says, "Rohan, what's wrong with you? Sit down. We were almost getting late. We gotta go, come on." Rohan gets in. And as he gets to school, he realizes that he might have forgotten his lunch. So he takes some time on the yard, dig into his backpack, and notice if the lunch is there or not. Well, he had it, so that's good. But he wasted some time, got through the front door. And at the front desk again, "Rohan, what's wrong with you? You are tardy. Get to class. Let's go." So Rohan runs again to the hall, opens the door, gets into the class just in time, panting and anxious. And as he enters the class, the teacher calls out, "Rohan, have you done the homework from last night?" Rohan had completely forgotten about the homework with that commotion going on in his house. And at this time, he kind of had a tantrum. He threw his backpack against the wall and he screamed. The teacher said, "Young man, that's not how we behave in the classroom. That's not how we enter this class. I'm going to march you to the principal right away." And she takes him to the principal. She tells the principal, "I don't know what's wrong with him. I just don't know what went wrong. He went from a 0 to 10 in 5 seconds flat." The principal looked at Rohan and said, "What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?" Now, there are two things that I want you to kind of reevaluate here. The first one, it's not what's wrong with Rohan. It's what has happened to Rohan. And the second thing, Rohan didn't come from 0 to 10. He was already at an 8 when he walked into that front door, right? So we are going to shift our mindset from what's wrong with you to what happened to you. Now, in this story, how many adults along the way were living in that what's wrong with you mindset? The mom, the bus driver, the front desk, the teacher, the principal, all of them. How much easier could Rohan's morning have been if instead they were operating under the what happened to you mindset? Just think about it. I just want to touch on childhood toxic stress for a minute. And that's when a child experiences strong, frequent, prolonged adversity like physical, emotional abuse, chronic neglect, caregiver substance abuse, or mental illness, exposure to violent and even prolonged economic hardship without adequate adult support. These toxic stresses without that adult support will have a lifetime lasting changes on the child's brain, its development, on their immune system, higher likelihood of alcoholism, higher likelihood of mental illness. It can even lead to a shorter life expectancies. It literally changes the child's brain development. So when Rohan freaked out and threw his backpack and screamed, that wasn't Rohan. And that's exactly what Joachim was also mentioning. He wasn't trying to be mean or lash out. That was actually a biological adaptation that may have allowed Rohan to cope, to survive that long. So just remember, it's not what's wrong with you, it's what happened to you. The brain science on this has been done, and we know that effects of childhood toxic stress that are there on development and health, they last lifetime. However, now that we know about it, we study that. We can predict it and we can prevent it. And that is where SEL comes into picture, social and emotional learning. I've just put across here the definition from the collaborative for the social and emotional learning, which is the process through which children and adults, I repeat, children and adults acquire and effectively apply the knowledge attributes and skills necessary to understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. And they lay this beautifully in a graphic here, where SEL is in the middle, self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, social awareness. I teach in that classroom. That's the first ring. School-wide practices and policies, that's the second one. That's the bus driver, the front desk, the teacher, the principal. And the third ring, homes, communities, that's us, right? There is a magazine, Inc. magazine, I'm sure most of us would know about it. And they had once released the top 10 skills that will be most desired by employers. And this was released in 2020, I guess. And according to the World Economic Forum, these were the 10 skills that were listed. Now, I just invite you to notice these skills. Which one of these are related to social and emotional learning?
All of them.
Yep. All 10 skills are social and emotional learning related. So this isn't just another class that schools may offer. This is a reality that the world is looking for. The top 10 skills that most desired by employers. Take a look again. So we are going back to that shifting mindset from what's wrong with you to what happened to you. Because it's the same for adults as well. Many adults carry that childhood toxic stress with them. It may have manifested into their own behavioral adaptation. Sometimes those behaviors don't align with what the society says is normal. And when we see adults doing something like this, we may feel ourselves getting upset and at them, or even jumping into judgments, or maybe even thinking, what's wrong with you? We've all done that, right? We do it. So I just want to tell you a story. I was sitting in an eye clinic waiting to have my exam. And there's this gentleman who storms in to the clerk and says, I'm here to pick up my glasses. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. The truck got late. They'll be here tomorrow, said the clerk. What do you mean they'll be here by tomorrow? They said it's going to be here today. I want my glasses today. Come on. Think, I can't do anything if the truck is delayed. This bunch of people. And he storms out of the glasses store. Now, I think 3 people in that situation could have benefited practicing SEL skills. Number 1, me. I could have benefited because I found myself thinking, what's wrong with that guy? You don't yell at the clerk, right? There's no excuse to yell at her. We do that. Number 2, that gentleman. He could have benefited from taking some deep breaths before interacting, maybe understanding things that he cannot control. And the third one, I think, is that clerk who could have benefited as well to not let that person insult come on as a personal insult. We all happen to come into these situations because not everybody has had the opportunity to hone the SEL tools, to build that SEL toolbox. And there are many ways, individually and community-wide, to build those tools and keep them sharp. Remember those 3 breaths that we took in the beginning of the talk? Put those in your toolbox. They are important. Looking around people in the community who are the stakeholders of SEL, and we are all a member of that community. So ultimately, it starts with all of us. It only takes a small pebble to ripple the entire pond. Some pebbles you may carry with you. It might be taking 3 breaths. Other pebbles you may carry with you can be during those changing red lights and traffics to a simple mindfulness reminder. Instead of hand gesturing the car next to you and honking your horn, maybe take those 3 breaths. take a pause. And looking around a paw pebble you can throw in the pond could be self-care. Another pebble you could toss in your pond is listening to your family, to your friends, to those people around you. And a pebble that I want you to think about today is maybe getting involved with your schools, your organizations, and those nonprofits that are likely to support and encourage SEL within our community. So to end our time together, here, I'm going to again give you that clue one more time, and we're going to take 3 more breaths. And while we do that, I invite you to notice and think about what pebbles can you toss in our pond. Ready? Thank you very much, everyone, for listening to me. I hope this was valuable.
Thank you so much, Mansi. It was a very, very interesting presentation. And I'm so glad that you gave us the story, which is a real life story, and you connected to the real ink world where what is needed by the corporates and the business world is social emotional learning. I'm sure a lot of researchers of our team are smiling when you presented, because this was our base to introduce student teacher time in our schools 2 years back. This exactly the story of Rohan, who is dragged and pushed in the morning and goes through so much. The first thing that we wanted to avoid was to be asked about homework or why you're late. The first thing that we wanted was moments of mindfulness, some dancing, some happy moments. And thank you so much for reinforcing all of these beliefs. And I hope each of the educators or parents take this and have some pebbles. I did my own pebble listing, but I really appreciate. I know Nelly is the next one to ask you questions, but I just wanted to appreciate what you have presented. Thank you very much for making these connections. Nelly, over to you.
Thank you. And thank you, Mansi, so much. I started thinking about how the school and home are not separated things, but like the things that happen at home, we can see at school, and like the combination of these two lives. So if we have a situation where in school we already understand the importance of SEL, but we would like to support the families, we would like to include the families in understanding the importance better. So what can we do at school? Like, how can we include families in this great message of SEL, and how we can also share the understanding to families, and like what can we do with the families so that we can support the students better together with them?
Thank you, Nelly, for this question. As we've seen through all that we've discussed so far, the one important message that comes across is it's connection before any kind of correction. And I very strongly believe in that. Till we do not have that connection, we will not be able to provide a correction or solution. In this case, for example, if it was Rohan and we identified that there is a challenge at home, if we have not built up that connection with the parents, do you think they will ever want to listen to us? We would not. So anything that we do is very strongly supported by the fact that we need to build that connection. We need to make sure that they have the comfort level to talk to us. We have the comfort level to talk. I cannot just simply go to somebody and tell them that this is the issue and that is affecting the child. They would not want to listen. So we can have a collaborative program. We can have something where we talk about the concerns that are there at home. We talk about the concerns that are there at school, appreciating what's working well and putting it across in a way which is a win-win for all.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay,
Right.
then we move to our last speaker. I will ask Shirin Kulkarni to introduce herself and then start her presentation.
Thank you, Nelly. Thank you so much. And I would just like to confirm that I have the 8 minutes slot to speak because we are just a little bit running behind the schedule.
Yes, but you can take another 2 minutes if you want to, Shireen, to complete your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Good to know. So hello everyone, myself Shireen Kulkarni and I'm the CC's director and co-founder and a passionate psychologist, and that's how I jumped into this webinar. and and I would like to share some of the basics of the SEL because I have been meeting people from all walks of life as a psychologist when I practice, right from academics to like very old aged people also who are retired now. So I'm doing counseling for them, and then more and more I understand the importance of learning the social emotional skills earlier in your life. So I will touch the base upon the SEL. Everyone has briefly mentioned it, but I would like to go a little deeper into that. So just allow me to share my screen with you. Perfect. So, as I explained earlier, social emotional learning is something that is the basis that we are expecting, as Mansi rightly suggested, that is the skill which is expected by the corporates. And they are like earlier, it used to be only these 4 C's of 21st century, which are still very much there, by the way, on the list. And that is creativity and critical thinking and collaboration and communication, which is there. And then again, except creativity, everything embraces social emotional learning. So I would like to take you a little bit more through the definition, and you can read the slides. So I'm just going to put my extra points there, which are not there on the slides. So when I was thinking about what is the difference between the SEL and emotional intelligence, because it is very much connected, then I understood that SEL is like the process through which one acquires the emotional intelligence, because we often talk about the emotional intelligence, emotional quotient, and that's why it is important to understand that how we go towards the emotional intelligence, and the path is going through the social emotional learning. And of course, as you can read, that it is the foundation for our well-being and emotional well-being, and also for the social well-being, practically speaking. So this is this emotional intelligence and developing empathy and learning problem-solving skills are the important things when we talk about SEL. Now, these are the SEL strategies Joachim touched upon like briefly, but I would like to go one by one through all of these. So what is the self-awareness basically? Self-awareness is to me, like, apart from these words that are on the slides, self-awareness is like understanding yourself and embracing yourself. Basically, it's not only like know who you are, but accept who you are, because when you accept yourself, then only you can accept others. When you see yourself as you are, then only you can see others as they are, and that makes your life very beautiful. And it is like your identity, finding your own identity. Who are you? What you would like to do? How you would like to do things? What is your perception about the world and about yourself? And so I think it is a kind of foundation stone to lead a meaningful life when you know yourself, when you know your passions. So we need to encourage such activities in the schools where the teachers and the students are equally encouraged to find their own identity. I always refer, to creative activities to find your own identity, because creativity is my passion. And I have seen through my research that creativity and identity do have a connection. So I highly encourage these kinds of activity that we should be doing in the schools and also at workplaces. Because today I am talking about SEL not only in education but as a life skill. So that's why I'm referring to the adults as well. Now, the second important pillar here is the self-regulation. Is like you need to understand and you should have the ability to manage and control your emotions, your impulses, and behaviors. It once you learn this self-regulation, it will help you in blooming into a mature adult. Sometimes we see adults who are very insecure. Like when I'm counseling people, I see some cases where the person who is suffering tells me that the other person is very aggressive, very dominating. It happens the aggression and domination comes from their own insecurities, their own fears, and they don't know how to self-regulate these emotions. Nobody has ever taught them. So that's why this self-regulation is something that we need to focus on, and we need to teach the children right from the early ages. It is also important to learn because it teaches you how to handle your negative emotions like anger, frustration, or anxiety, stress, and it also helps you in preventing you from taking any rash decisions or decisions in haste, like you are getting angry and doing something that is harmful for yourself and maybe for others. Then moving on to the social awareness, like it is when you are aware about what kind of things you are doing and how it is going to affect others. So it is mainly like being empathetic, and also this is how you develop the sense of responsibility. In Finland we always see that people are very much socially aware. I will give you a small example. Like in Finland, when we board the public buses, what we do is that we often go and sit on the seats which are behind, so that the people who are coming later, they will get the places to sit, and it will not become impossible for them to reach into the end and sit somewhere there. So I think this is something like social awareness we need to have, and once we have this kind of social awareness, then we always have a beautiful society. So when we are talking about the civic sense, it also falls under this category. Going on to the next pillar is, which is the relationship skills. I think we all know that personal and professional relationships are the foundation for leading a successful, meaningful, purposeful life and fulfilling life. So when we are having these first three pillars like self-awareness, social awareness, and self-regulation, then it leads to the meaningful relationships automatically. A relationship is something that we take for granted, but it is something actually where we need to work upon. And but we are never taught that relationships are to be taken seriously, and that's why we lack the skills of maintaining the relationships. So this is one important thing, that relationship skills need to be developed by everybody who is in that relationship. One person cannot maintain that relationship. It is a responsibility of everybody who is there in that relation to maintain it, and all of them need to have these social emotional skills. And I think we need to take more effort on this, considering the divorce rates that are coming up, single parenting, and all the other kinds of identity crisis, all kinds of challenges with substance abuse. I think we all need to work a lot on this kind of relationship skills, where communication is also an integral part. And then, like for example, when we have good relationships, then we also make responsible decisions. So when we are talking about responsible decision making, then we are talking about thinking of the consequences of my decision that will lead, that kind of consequences that will happen in the society as well as in my family, on myself also. So when we are like making people aware of the consequences of their decisions, then they can avoid any kind of such decisions, maybe like drinking and driving, where they are literally playing with other people's life, or suicides for maybe a failure in an exam. Nowadays we read that a boy committed suicide because he did not get a smartphone. Well, is it a reason to really, lose your valuable life? But we often are so busy in talking academics, in talking success, that we don't really have time to listen to others and to listen what they have to say, what they are going through. So we have to be really cautious of others' emotions and take into consideration what they are going through. And once we know that, then we give more time for this emotional, social emotional learning and social emotional teaching as well into the classrooms. And actually, at last, I would like to bring your attention to the importance of teaching this SEL in early years. And there is an example, the best example is Finland, of course, because in Finland, we don't emphasize on reading and writing skills in early childhood education, but we focus more on the social emotional skills development. And it has been taken quite seriously because we believe that the reading and writing is eventually going to happen when the children are going to enter into grade 1. And but before they go to grade 1, we have to make sure that they know how to behave with each other, how to collaborate with each other, how to work in a group, and how to be a team member, and also how to lead when it is required. So all these things are emphasized in the early childhood education in Finland, and then throughout the classes, throughout the education, it is all the more it is emphasized. So thank you. I think I will stop here now. I must have used my time by now and open for the questions.
Thank you very much, Shini. As always, a very great and insightful and very nice looking presentation. And that has always been your key, the content and how you present it. Thanks a lot. I have a couple of questions. One, you spoke so nicely and you kind of summed up this whole session. You delved into each of the aspects of social emotional learning. And you being in the professional capacity that you are, I'm sure you're talking to a lot of parents. So do you find this challenging to communicate to them, like do these kind of things with your children early on? And as Mansi said earlier, or Joachim said earlier, that we do not label the child, or we just talk about the behavior. And I'm sure you're dealing with these kind of cases. So what kind of advice and how do you work with them? I'm asking more on the perspective of schools which might not have the kind of a psychologist or counselor they want, but how can they do small bits to make a difference?
Yes, very wonderful question actually, and I deal with a lot of these kinds of parents. Basically, when the children with low esteem come to me, this is the reason why they are going through this low self-esteem, is because their parents are not believing in them. The parents are not listening to them, and that's why they have really nobody to go to. Then they start, telling lies. Then they go into their shell, then their performance drops, and then they are labeled as unsuccessful, or they are labeled as they are liars or something like that. So whenever I am dealing with such children, I need to talk to their parents, and I first need to tell them to stop labeling the children. I need to tell them that whatever doubts you might have about your child, talk to the child in a respectable manner, in a respectful way, so that the child is feel, is like you are listening to him, the child feel heard. So that is how I need to always start. Sometimes I need to take them also down the memory lane, and I need to remind them about their own childhood, and how did they feel when somebody labeled them. And most of the times it makes wonders.
Thanks a lot for clarifying that. And I'm sure these tips are helping the parents who are listening to us. We are still having people join into this Zoom session because there are people who are joining from different part of the world. So one last question, Shireen, before I let you go. What would you tell the teachers? Not every school is making this as a part of curriculum. I'm so glad you gave this example of Finland, and it's a small example of how you board the bus. And yes, at CCE, we are trying very hard to make this as a part of all CCE Finland schools, but other schools and other educators who are there, what would be one key takeaway that you would give teachers of making this as a SEL as a part of their curriculum?
I think we have already set an example of this STT, student teacher time. And I guess that is the best example where teachers are communicating with the children without any academics. And that's what the teachers, the students are looking for, because they want the teacher to be seen as a human being, and they want themselves also to be seen as human beings. They are not machines like who comes in a uniform and sit there and do the job and then go away, but they are to be treated like human beings. And I would suggest that we all know, like nowadays, about these happiness hormones. So when a teacher gives a pat on your back, a friendly touch, this is all what they want, and this is all what they lack. So I would suggest that any such kind of friendly gesture would make their days beautiful and would make their lives beautiful.
Thank you so much, Shireen. And with this note, we come to our end of this webinar, and we appreciate all our audience members who are with us at this point in time. And we have already posted the link for our SEL program, and as taking this opportunity for launching the SEL course, and it will be given to 10 participants at the half discounted price. My colleague has already shared the link, but nonetheless, I will share the web page here. And this is where you can learn about CCE Finland's commitment to SEL, and you can read more about the course. This is just a 6 weeks course giving you introduction to SEL and also how you can integrate into your curriculum. So whether you're an educator, parent, and you want to do this at your home, and here are the main features of the course and how you can enroll on the course. And my colleague has already put all the links. We thank each one of you for being with us. I thank my entire backend team, Ms. Nandini, Mr. Kalyan. I thank my colleagues, Nelly, Joachim, Shireen, and all the speakers that have joined today, the educators, and you're encouraging us with all your comments. We look forward to continuing this journey. Many of you asked us, would we have the series of webinars like that? The answer is yes. But at this note, I thank you for your time. Have a very lovely week ahead, and lots of love and good wishes to all of you. Thank you.